Welcome, friends. We are doing another episode of the Earth Care World Report. So we've come back around every month for the last little bit. We have been working on doing a world report on one of the three ethics of permaculture, either Earth Care, People Care, or Fair Share. And really, I wrapped the Fair Share and Future Care because a lot of people are also calling Future Care and Fair Share, they're calling it a similar ethic. And so I'm wrapping those two together. I really like both of them. And so I'm not going to determine whether it's Future Care or Fair Share. I think they're one and the same in many ways. And so if you are tuning in for the first time for one of these world reports, we do these on the first of the month. Every first Tuesday of the month, we get to talk a little bit about what's going on in the world in regards to these ethics that we're sharing here. And I'm excited because this is actually the first time that I am recording this. So if you are watching this recording instead of just listening to it right now, it's probably a little different. You get to see my crazy mane that I've been growing out during the COVID craziness. I got the full beard going on, and the long hair is starting to come in. And it's towards the end of the day, so it's starting to fall out of its gel and stuff, and and I am a little bit of a hot mess right now, to say the least, trying to figure out a new component, which is the video component of this. And this will be posted on the Seeds of Tao YouTube channel, which is also a new thing. So I would love for you to take a look at that and join in with us. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. And we will, for the moment, just be posting the world reports at the beginning of each month. And starting with this one, the second Earth Care World Report. So I'm going to do a little bit of an introductory to the ethics just because it's our second time doing this, but I'm sure most of you already know that Earth Care is a big component to permaculture. And I'm sure most of you know as well that People Care is a big principle or big ethic to permaculture. And finally, Fair Share / Future Care is a ethic that helps us to understand how and guides us, because that's what ethics do. They help guide us in the right direction in our permaculture practice to fairly share the abundance and resources that are available to us in this world, as well as share that with future generations, right? So People Care, caring for people; Earth Care, caring for the earth. Doing all three of those and doing it in a holistic permaculture way. That's what we are doing as permaculturists, and it really associates the emotional side, the spiritual side of what permaculture is. And so we're going to get into this Earth Care World Report. I'm always excited to be on the podcast and talking with you guys about certain things, but I'm particularly excited about this Earth Care World Report because, I have noticed that this whole COVID craziness has given a new life to the awareness of where our world is at, how the Earth is kind of sharing some of its need for care and for us to be that steward. There's no time like the present to be doing this work in permaculture, caring for our earth. Here's what we're going to discuss here today on this episode. So last time, I believe we talked a lot about gardening, and you can visit the last Earth Care World Report on our website, or if you're listening to this on Spotify or another podcast platform, go ahead and take a look at that prior one, because I think it's also important we'd be talking about the importance of gardening. But I really wanted to focus this one on soil health and really what's going on in that world. And a couple episodes, I mentioned that Emily and I, and we actually got our kids to come in on the interview and chat with us about their thoughts on this documentary that we had watched called The Need to Grow. And there's some really interesting literature there that I thought was fascinating to be able to share with you. And it brought up some conversation with friends that aren't in my permaculture circle. And basically, I'll tell you this little story and take it for what it is. But I won't name names because it was kind of a little bit of a I don't really believe in what you're saying here. So that quote in Never or Need to Grow, that topsoil could be gone within 60 years. I posted that along with, you should really watch this documentary. It's really showing some of and bringing awareness to some of the issues that we have and some of the ways that we can make a positive impact in our efforts. And I thought it was very uplifting, but I had a friend that was like really skeptical. It was like, oh man, everybody says something, blah, 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 blah. And so it made me think twice about this particular this quote and where it came from. And that's what I really want to focus on here is, doing my due diligence and what that led to in kind of understanding what this quote, where this quote comes from, and the people behind it, and why it has meaning to anybody that may not understand, soil health and the science behind soil, and the issues that are coming up in the world right now with our current soil regeneration and lack thereof, I guess. So funny instance. So when I saw this quote, I was like, I'm always one to be a little optimistic when it comes to people getting involved in permaculture and learning. Like everybody should learn about this, right? And everybody wants to learn about this. So when I hear someone that is a little jaded by the thought of what I'm talking about when it comes to these types of things, I dive a little deeper. I make a little bit more of an effort to make sure that they understand. So since it was a good friend from our days up in Montana when we were living off grid, they weren't living off grid. They were friends that we knew that were living in a small town nearby that we had met, and particularly this family also wanted to have their own plot of land somewhere more rural, and they were already in a rural area, but kind of an off-grid, getaway, kind of a bug-out way of living, right? If everything in the world goes to heck in a handbasket, then they wanted to have this property, and they've since purchased a property, but they didn't necessarily believe in the permaculture principles, and I thought it was really interesting because I thought it would really resonate with this particular person, but it hasn't. And so I decided, well, I'm going to reach out, and I gave him a call, and we started talking about this particular quote, and he's like, yeah, you know what? I honestly, I just can't believe it. Like, it's not going to be 60 years. There's always something, or there's always going to be soil and available to us if we're rotating crops and doing things and things like that. And I'm like, oh, great. Well, that will help lessen the damage of crop rotation and so forth, but it's still degrading the soil in a very unsustainable way if we don't use some other measures like on top of crop rotation, cover crops, and some of these other things that we're starting to recognize that bring organic material into the soil, and some of these other ways of making sure that moisture stays in, and nutrients is being aggregated in those types of things, right? So we got into this conversation, and I was apparently getting nowhere. So we agreed to disagree, and said we would keep in touch on what we're doing. And it's always a little disheartening if you know something within your bones is true, and someone is skeptical about it. But it made me think, where does this quote come from? And I did some research, and I'm going to share with you that research that I had, and see what you get, see what your opinions are. I would love for you to chat in the Slack community, comment on our blog post that goes alongside this, or whatever way you can reach out. You can direct message me on Slack or email me your thoughts on this research. And I'm gonna, because I'm doing this through via camera and screen share, I'm gonna share my screen, and we're gonna go through some of these websites that I ran into. But who came up with this quote is kind of a fascinating little thing that I started to understand, and it made me further question if what the validity of this statement is. If there's only 60 years left, right? That's a pretty bold of topsoil with our current rate of how we're using and depleting the soil. That's a really bold statement. So who came up with this quote? Well, it was Maria Helena, and I hopefully I'm not slaughtering this. And if you're listening, Maria, I'm sorry. I have reached out to Maria, and maybe we'll have an interview with her in the future. But so Maria Helena Semedo, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right, but she's the deputy director of the Food and Agriculture Organization, or FAO, right? And that's a United Nations group created 74 years ago to help defeat hunger and improve nutrition and food security. So not necessarily to work with the whole global warming issues and those types of things, but they have come to understand in this organization that it's a very needful thing, especially in soil regeneration, that it's going to help in carbon sequestration and those types of things. And I really feel, I honestly do, that Maria Helena has the best intentions with what she's doing. And coming up with this quote, I believe she's basing it off of the current data that she has available, and the research and data that has been developed. Though it's kind of a loose term, we could say at any point that we only have a certain amount of time based upon certain variables, but we have lots of variables, and we can't really say an exact date of when things are going to happen. And hopefully we can extend this period and keep regenerating the soil in such a way that it's going to last for centuries and centuries and centuries, for an infinite amount of time, because we understand how to create great soil, at least until the sun gobbles us up, right? So timing of this, and I have to bring this up because there's a lot of things that happened around the time that she brought this up, and I'm actually gonna, it was right around, and let's do the screen share here in a second. I'm gonna queue up some websites here and share with you guys, and okay, so I got this queued up. I'll show you and share with you in just a moment here. But this quote, I believe, was given at the soil health fair or something like that. Uh, but there was a quote, this quote given of topsoil could be gone within 60 years based on the current uh, degradation of soil health um, at this event. And a lot of people picked it up and ran with it and started putting it out into uh, things things like the never or need to grow. I keep on thinking of another documentary, but the Need to Grow picked it up, and they picked it up at the same time because they started filming Need to Grow around 2014 or just after 2014 when this was actually this quote was actually given. And interesting enough, there was some stats that the Food and Agriculture Organization was actually releasing, which coincided with this and also coincided with a lot of research that was going on. And I think it was because people were getting interested and excited about soil health and some of the different ways that we could remediate some of the impacts that we were having in agriculture. So, you might have heard a little Slack pop up. I forgot to tune those out. But here we go here. I'm going to share this screen. Make sure I'm using this equipment properly. Here we go. Move me over to the side. Switch over there. Okay. So we have this little infographic that was actually released by the FAO, the UN organization, and where food begins, right? And this is a great infographic. It's got some great stats on here and great some data and information. Soils, a foundation for family farming. Discover soil's function and the risks it's running right now. So it has a picture of a plate if you're listening to this, and it says 95% of our food comes from our soil. It's a big amount, right? So a large percentage of our planet's arable soil is used for family farming. And it says 83% of that in North and Central America, and 68% in Europe. Asia is 85%, Africa is 62%, and South America 18%. So our arable soil is used for family farming. Now, here's a really inspiring quote. Sustainable soil management could produce up to 58% more food. And they're taking this from crop rotations and different ways of doing organic farming that's beneficial to soil health, and it could create more yield, greater yield, and more nutritional food. And that's taken from quite a bit of studies, and we'll get into some of those studies. But soil teeming with life is teeming with life, and so it shows soils host a quarter of our planet's biodiversity. And just to really think of that statement there, I think is really fascinating to say that our biodiversity is just in the soil alone, because there's so many microorganisms and so many different things. And to say that, the current agriculture, if you didn't already know this, unsustainable agriculture is really unsustainable because of the chemicals and things that we use kills off all of that biodiversity, right? We're basically declaring war, as many people have said, on our planet by killing it with toxins and doing that because of these statistics and ways of framing the information. It really kind of brings it to light as well. There are more organisms by one tablespoon of healthy soil than there are people on the earth, right? So lots of biodiversity going on within our soil. What is soil made of? gives a breakdown of soil. It's 45% minerals, 5% organic matter, 25% air, and 25% water. And so it sequesters a lot of, through the organic material, so it sequesters carbon, retains water, helps us to grow, use the carbon in a healthy way, which is also, carbon sequestration. So great things happening there. So this infographic, if you're looking at this as well, also says, but our soils are in great danger. Globally, up to 50,000 square kilometers of soil and area around the size of Costa Rica is lost every year. Deforestation, us using soil in the wrong way, water overwatering, soil erosion. All of these different things are leading to 50,000 square kilometers of soil being taken away from our abilities. And again, this is a 2014 statistics. 33% of our global soils are degraded, and 16% of the continent of Africa has been affected by soil degradation. I have a hard time saying that word. Yet it can take up to 1,000 years to produce just 2 to 3 centimeters of soil. And this is where I really think the quote of we only have 60 years of topsoil left, of farmable topsoil at this point. It comes from is, it takes a really long time, and we know that there's studies that in nature this is how long it takes. But we're also starting to recognize that there are ways to speed up that process to create topsoil, and different ways that we can compost and create organic matter and feed the nutrients that will allow that biodiversity in the soil to grow and flourish. Things like biochar and a lot of other things speed up that process as well. So there's more hope to that. But in nature, really, it takes a long time. And as we are taking off that soil through natural farming mechanisms, it really does take away from our ability to farm and grow food. So they end this infographic, I think, on a very positive note. But while over a third of our food goes to waste, meaning that we do waste a lot of food, up to half of our household waste could be composted to nurture our soil. Saying that we can add some more organic material, we can close the loop, use these permaculture principles and regenerative farming principles to build up our soils again, and there is a solution, right? Essentially, and that's not the only solution. So I really enjoyed this, and I believe I saw this infographic back then. I can't say for sure in 2014 because it's been a little while now. But I remember seeing something like this. I was like, yes, this is all true, and we need to share this, right? And again, we can. This is still relevant to today. But this was right around that quote, the time that quote came out, and kind of a huge push. A couple other things that were going on here. Soil. Where was it? Soil Health Institute. Unlock the secrets of soil. Well, okay. Here, a lot of so I already mentioned that Need to Grow started, but and if you haven't seen this, I actually should share this. So if you haven't watched Need to Grow, I think you should. But it started around this same time, and I'm gonna pull this up real quick. YouTube. We're going over to YouTube here, in YouTube land, and we're gonna watch this trailer here. Here's that quote, right?
If we stay on our course, we could look at a worldwide catastrophe.
60 years of farming.
Industrial agriculture is first and foremost a war against the earth because it is a war against all species, since you're bringing war chemicals into food production and all they're doing is killing.
We cannot fight nature. You cannot poison things to the extent that where you, quote, win.
It's a challenge to live in a world where our government cannot be counted on to defend us from an industrial food system that's actually making us sick.
Hopefully soon the planet will change. People should really learn about how to help your community and help yourself in life.
You can grow 100% organic, nutrient-dense food at warp speed, basically. This stuff will grow anything. There is a secret here that we've got to unlock.
What we've tried to do here is accelerate the regeneration of soil.
Well, I've done some testing behind your back. Okay, so you're doing in 4 to 5 days what nature would take
In about 400 years.
400 years. Wow, that's pretty amazing. Disrupting food, fuel, and fertilizer all in one little powerhouse. You're going to have a lot of pushback. I worry about it getting squashed before it gets out.
Yeah. You don't get points for doing the right thing, and that's the right thing. You just have to do it.
We're trying to change Girl Scout cookies so they're healthier. Right now we have at least 45,000 signatures.
Last minute they decided that the representative was going to be in a meeting. They hung up on me.
You never know what could be happening there.
They're just called free share.
They're just not listening.
We just heard a rumor that we might lose our farm.
4:30 a.m., telephone rings. I knew it could not be good news.
Looking at the amount of heat that needed to be generated, I'm a little suspicious.
To say that we care about the future of this planet, to say that we care about the survival of our species, and to not take action is simply no longer an option.
Hopefully, we'll recover from this.
Really, really great. If you haven't seen it yet, go out and watch this. And I believe it's actually still free. I'm going to cancel that. But Living Soil actually comes up right behind it. And do you know what? Living Soil was actually, we can watch this, is another great, was actually, Living Soil? No, it wasn't Living Soil. Sorry. It was, this one's, it's quite beautiful. And this is, when I watched this, it was released right before, I think, her quote, the UN quote by Maria, and it's the documentary that's...
Most of the planet is not living. It's mineral, it's never known life. It's just this rock. And yet soil starts forming on it and creates this very thin layer where life is possible.
Soil is the interface between biology and geology. It's sort of the living skin of the earth.
Almost meditative to
It's Times Square on New Year's Eve all the time in the soil. When you take that soil and you put it under a microscope and you start looking at it, it's a place full of life.
We can go down thousands of years in this.
This hasn't been shaped by life yet.
Many of the elements have been washed out of the soil because it's so wet here.
We make about 200 to 300 yards of our own compost every year.
But we don't grow plants, we grow soil, and soil grows plants.
This soil just goes down and down and down and down and down. Deep, rich. Now, it didn't start off like that.
Cannot have good flavor without that kind of attention to detail and knowledge of the biology.
If we have declared a war against the soil itself, then we are literally committing a species-level suicide.
And the only thing that I can see that really looks promising is to get back to the fundamentals of the soil.
The soil returns to what it was like when it was first broken out.
So alive and so vital.
So yeah, really beautiful story. This came out right before, you know, these kind of infographics and things were going on by the UN, and they really do stem from some strong research.
What part?
Playing things that we don't want to really share right now. Really stem from a lot of this stuff that was coming around this infographic and data shared by you know, the World Soil. It was World Soil Day is what it was. It was the event, right? And there's a lot of literature and things going out to inform people, and so it was really great to see this type of information get out into the world, and to get into some of the research, because I think it's really fascinating and needed to understand where this information is coming from, because it's coming from all over. I would say, you know, a lot of times it's not just, you know, a lot of times in movements and whatnot, you have big business trying to get in and share a point of view, and there's a lot of propaganda out there that's formalized by very powerful and influential people that you can't necessarily take. You have to take with a grain of salt, because there's ulterior motives, and everybody has ulterior motives. But when there's so many people around the world saying the same thing in different contexts and different studies, you know, you have and different types of people. It's not just people with big budgets, but also people with small budgets and people working, you know, researchers, farmers, scientists, environmentalists. They're all saying these same things and releasing these statistics. You know, nonprofits, for-profits, real people that are just passionate and enthusiastic about creating change and really getting involved. And that's what this permaculture movement is all about, right? And so I want to really highlight some of this because we have, you know, we have organizations like Soil Renaissance here, right? They're doing some amazing things, and this organization has a lot of work that they're moving forward. And I believe it's actually, I'm trying to get to the bottom of this here, Farm Foundation. So it's a collective of farmers, a nonprofit, right? And then we have Samuel Roberts Noble Foundation. So, you know, that's I believe the Noble family is a wealthier family, but you also have other people working in this, like the Soil Health Institute, which is a group of researchers. You have, you know, the USDA program called Unlock the Secrets of Soil, which is another one. You have the Soil Health Partnership. You have the Soil Health Nexus. All of these organizations really popping up more recently to gain a better understanding of what's going on. And you know, one thing that I started to recognize in my research of this is that we are able to, where is this? Come into here, and I'm mixing up my research here. Okay. You know, you really should organize your links and everything before getting on and doing a video on it, right? I'm not going to cut and sew this as much as I thought I would because of the video. give me just a moment. Bear with me as I find okay, here we go. The Organic Farming Research Foundation has some really great information here. And, you know, I was really blown away and impressed by the reports that they have available for anybody to kind of hop on, give your email, and go in and take a look at these. So we have guide to conducting on-farm research, so you can be, as a farmer, do the research for soil science and for gaining a better understanding of how these processes, more organic and regenerative ways of farming and producing food are benefiting. And so you can be a part of this research, and many farmers are a part of this research. It's not just researchers, like I said. It's not just one person or one organization or one wealthy organization doing this. It's all sorts of people, and I would suggest if you do, even on a suburban or urban or even a small rural farm or your back 40 or back 20, you really do make it a part of what you do is data collection and understanding and gaining the research, so that we can add to the fundamental research that's being done, and add to a better understanding of what soil health is and what's going on with these organic methods, and how it is actually improving soil health and carbon sequestration and all the many things that we're hoping to keep our soil for the next 60, beyond 60 years, right? So there's a really cool YouTube video here by Alex Woodley at the Organic Farming Research Foundation. They do a
Okay, great. Thanks for having me here today. Yes, I'm Alex Woodley. I'm here from North Carolina State. I've been here for about a year and a half now. And today I'm going to talk about soil health principles for resiliency in organic agriculture. This is part of a larger talk, and I'm fundamental differences in how we also tracked whether the tile drainage and the surface runoff. So we're able to watch the water dynamics. And so this looks like a time lapse, but it's not. These are all taken on the same day, and this corn is all planted on the exact same day. And you can see just fundamental differences in how this corn is doing. This is when you have a complex rotation and you have your fertility at the right levels. This is when you're relying on rotation alone, so you're still seeing decent response from that alfalfa turned over. Here's continuous corn, despite having adequate soil fertility, it's looking terrible. And this is, as you can expect, 50 years of continuous corn with no fertility. And I know this is not a realistic example, but it's great to actually see the extremes. And you can see that by not having adequate fertility, you're dropping your yields by 28%, continuous down by 45%, and then continuous only is 85% drop in yields.
So, and what he's saying here, and especially if you can't see this, that's they planted this corn all at the same time, and continuous if you were just to plant straight corn continuously for year after year, your yields is 85% less, right? And if you do continuous plus a little bit of soil fertility, adding nutrients, soil fertility work, you get a stronger yield but less. And then complex rotation only, you get more, and it's showing images of the yield that they're getting, and it looks, like you said, a time lapse of corn, but really they're planted at the same time. They're just growing at greater rates. And then if you do complex rotation plus soil fertility, you get an even greater yield, right? And so that quote that we saw in that infographic here, and I'll just is coming from this type of data, and this is not the only data that's showing this, but sustainable soil management could produce up to 58% more food. So I thought it was really fascinating, kind of diving into this research. But another comment here that's done at showcases some information. I'll play this at the right place so it talks about it. It really is
part of any part of this when it comes to sustainable agriculture.
It really is quite telling. This is actually research done in 1997, right? So it says this on the bottom corner if you're looking at this research. But organic matter declines by 30 to 50% after conversion to agriculture, right? So if we turn the land over to agriculture, it declines by 30 to 50%. Now, recovery is slower than loss, meaning that we can't bring that back up just after. So we're reducing the soil, and then the decline in the soil is more rapidly happening in tropical areas, but we can't regenerate that soil once it's been turned over for agriculture use in its traditional agriculture because of the process that we're using. And so there needs to be some remediation here, and I'll let him speak.
Agriculture research. I like to use this slide as kind of an example of where we are at with soil organic matter. Typically when you convert land over, you lose about 30 to 50% of your organic matter over the first 30, 40 years. And then we kind of stabilize at a lower level. And that's where a lot of the farms are at in the US right now, at this new equilibrium. We've been doing the same management for years and years. And we're at a good point to really increase. And this is where we can start doing some more sustainable practices where we can increase our soil organic carbon. And it's a win-win on both ends. We get to sequester more carbon for the CO2 component, but we also see a lot of soil health benefits. And this is where I'm going to start using some of my examples from my research. This is the Harrow Research Station.
So this is just a few cases of research that kind of back these claims that soil is being depleted at a greater rate that we're actually bringing it up. That's not even really including a lot of the issues of deforestation and water, overwatering issues and soil erosion. But this is just really talking about us using the land for monocrops and monoculture situations. So giving you just a better understanding of where this information is coming from, hopefully I'm doing that at this point. I would suggest that you look into some of these organizations that I suggest here. Take a look at the I'm subscribed to eOrganic that's produced a lot of these or actually recorded the conference, the 2020 Organic Seed Growers Conference, the 2020 webinar Organic Agriculture Research Forum as well, and dive a little bit deeper into the research. I think it is so important for not just farmers to understand this, but the mainstream backyard gardeners, the people that really do care and want to do better, to dive a little bit deeper into an understanding of what soil health is, because it has a huge impact globally, and but it starts in your backyard. It starts with you understanding, because if you have this understanding, and I'll get rid of the screen capture so I can talk straight to you here. If you have this understanding right now, and you take this understanding into your gardening practices, I think as you talk to your neighbors about their gardening, about using insecticides, about starting a compost pile, about using Roundup on their lawn, you have the understanding and the ability to direct them from a place of knowledge rather than blasting out a quote, just like I've done in the past and in other areas where I latched onto this information, knowing and feeling within my heart that it was true, but not really doing my research and understanding why it's true, and it coming from a deeper level of understanding. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. Those that are listening to this podcast really truly do believe in these things, or they understand, they do the research, but what are some of the ways? And I'd love to open up the conversation on the Slack community and throughout the greater regenerative and permaculture movement. What are some of the ways that we can get the general public to understand these issues? And I think it starts with the individual. That's my belief. I would love to hear your thoughts. It starts with the individual really taking stock, doing what you can in your own personal gardening, in your own little back 40 or in your urban community, suburban community, and really taking this to heart, and collecting the data that you need to have to be able to share alongside that. It's not just this organization or that organization, but I've done the research with my health. I've implemented the tactics. I've done cover crops. I've done sheep mulching or whatever, and no-till gardening for this amount of time. Look at the yields I've received. Understand these things. Share it with people. Take pictures. Be engaged with your local community and share these things. I think it starts there, and I think that's where effective change starts as well. With getting people to change policy, great, but if it doesn't change people's minds, we're missing out. And again, I know I'm speaking to the choir, but I hope that this maybe opened up your eye, or you help it to open up another person's eyes as you gain a better understanding of where this information is coming from. What else was there that I wanted to really cover in this? We really are. I want to put it into perspective. That's we are all working to do our part. We all have a part to play, and so we need to be the change. We all need to keep on growing. Doing our small part in whatever case that we are in. I was listening to a permaculture podcast, and I'm forgetting the name of it. It's one of the well-known ones, more established than the Seeds of Tao podcast, but it was just a brief little thing of a question that they were bringing to their community, and I think it's true for many of us that get involved and get excited about permaculture. In the beginning, we take our PDC, we read Bill Molson's book, or we dive in and start gardening in a regenerative way, but we lose track and lose sight of the way that we can keep on continually improving and implementing our understanding and knowledge of permaculture in foundational ways. But it is those small and slow solutions that are going to have the greatest impact. So just keep on moving forward, right? Do what you can with where you're at, with what you have. I forget, that's even a quote somewhere, but if we can just do that, if you are sitting in your apartment in an urban area and you feel like you have no land, no way to grow the soil, to bring things back well, get involved in a community garden. Get involved in your closest community garden. Just start growing food. Start giving your food waste to proper places that can use it as compost. Do what you can with what you have where you're at, and there will be more opportunities for you to implement at a greater capacity as time moves on, if you are doing what you can with what you have where you're at. And I would attest to that. I would bear my testimony of that being very true, because not every single moment of my life have I been in a situation where I can grow and have a great yield. And sometimes it's just being able to have this, even the smallest amount of a yield, doing microgreens, doing a worm compost indoors, this very small one, whatever it is that I can do at this moment, to have a greater respect and understanding of those doing, of our farmers and those doing regenerative work. Sometimes that's all we can do at this moment, but there's going to be times that we can have a greater capacity, and we won't be able to lean into that greater capacity if we haven't been doing the small and slow solutions and the small things that we could do at this moment. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox. Hopefully this has been helpful for you. Please, if you're enjoying these episodes, please share this podcast episode, and when the YouTube is out, share this video with others. Let others know about what we're doing here with the Seeds of Tao podcast, telling the stories of those in the permaculture and regenerative movements. Write a review on Apple and Stitcher if you're listening to us on either of those platforms, or another platform that you can review on. And really, let's get involved. Keep on growing. I love you guys. Keep on growing, not just the food, that's so important, but also keep on growing your mind and your ability to deploy and use these permaculture principles. All right, thanks again for listening to another episode, and I will see you on the next episode. Bye for now.